I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here we talk about true crime and psychology. Thank you so much for joining. Let's hop right into today's topic. Let's go. Welcome. I do just want to give a warning. This case involves the death of a child, and it is tragic. It is so sad. And I think it is important to talk about because the defendant has a diagnosis that already has a lot of stigma with it. I saw a video recently where somebody mentioned three of the most stigmatized mental health diagnoses are borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder. And with those diagnoses, there are people, so the majority of people with those diagnoses will not do crimes. They will follow the recommended medication regimen, the therapy, treatment. They will do those things. There are a small portion of people, just like there are people without any diagnoses that goes off and does some type of crime. And so I really like breaking these things down because this case is complicated. And for anyone that would like to support the family, I did check and it does look like this GoFundMe is still available. My heart truly goes out to Julian's mom. Julian's mom did have to testify. So anyone that's new to this case, uh, we have surveillance of what happened. I am not going to play that surveillance today. You can feel free. There are other videos that have broken it down. But Bionca Ellis, earlier that day, she was released from police custody. And during that interaction, she accused them of still having some of her money or property. She made this accusation. And during that so she ends up leaving, but she leaves the police station and she goes to this thrift store. And while at the thrift store, it's my understanding that she's looking at knives and she picks one up. It's my understanding that she picked one up and um because in that moment, it seems as though she knows what's about to happen, that there is that's where the homicidal ideation, so that's what we call the thought of harming someone else. That is where that seems to be there. And the mental health expert for the defense is going to explain that in a different way. And that's where I just want for us to talk about it. Okay. And I do believe that yes, she does definitely need some help. And I do hope that no matter what happens from this, that she can still have access to her medication. It's my understanding that right now she is court ordered to be on medication. And if that court order wasn't there, I don't know if she would take her medication or not. And when she is not on her medication, she presents very differently. Her behavior is very strange, it's very odd. And to my knowledge, this was the first time she had done a a violent crime. Um, but this is just a very difficult case. I had a blast on Courtroom Confidential. I was able to be on with attorney Josh Ritter. He was phenomenal behind the scenes and on the show. They probably will invite me back at some point. I will share anytime I'm on someone else's channel. I will definitely share that information. And I do have a link. If anybody missed that interview, I do have a link to it down in the description. It says Courtroom Confidential. You can click right there. It was a great discussion to get the legal side, because legally she has to meet the legal definition of insanity. So insanity is a legal term. Now, mental health experts are often employed to give an opinion as to whether or not someone has met that legal standard. So there are forensic psychiatrists and then there are forensic psychologists that often do that testing, or that do that a meeting that meet with the person to determine whether they meet criteria for legal insanity. Now, it is up to the jury to decide whether the individual meets that legal standard or not. So the experts make a recommendation. So in this case, the defense has one expert saying, yes, she does meet criteria for legal insanity. There is a state expert. So hopefully I said that right. So there's defense expert that says yes. There's a state expert that says no. And we are going to take a look at both. Kiddo came in. Are you good? So I'm doing a video right now. So if you're in here, you just got to be quiet, okay? And then if you want the iPad, you can do Scratch. Okay, you can do Scratch Junior, or you can do something learning. Okay, you can and I should be done by 2:30. Okay, all right. So if you did see the courtroom confidential interview, so Josh is super professional and it was so great to get to be on his channel. But he asked me with a straight face about Donna Adelson, if her complaining, I don't know, like he asked me a question and I could not. I took everything within me. I start laughing. So I have a short of that clip on my channel because that was absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. All right. So back to Bionca Ellis. Put a 1 in the chat if you would like to see the prosecution's opening. I do want to play clips of the defense's opening. This case is not being live streamed. So put a 1 in the chat if you would like to see the prosecution's opening. We can skip that and go straight to some of my other clips so that we can break things down. I definitely had some face subtitles because it was like, sir, Donna, you can't. Ruth Miller, because we were talking about Ruth Miller. No. We were talking about, it was the guy, Brian Walsh. We were talking about Brian Walsh because he is having some trouble, participating in meetings, answering questions, but not in a Donna Adelson way. So with Donna Adelson, the judge had to ask her multiple times if she was going to testify. And it wasn't that she didn't understand the question, she just didn't like it. Okay, good. So we are definitely, looks like you all would like to see because I want to play the defense's side, I definitely want to play the state's, because the state shares their theory of what happened in this case. And I will make sure, because I don't have the link to this one in the description, I'll make sure to add this link. All right, so this is the beginning of the state's opening. Let's go ahead and play this. Let me close caption and we'll do it normal.
Opening statements, ladies and gentlemen, is kind of a roadmap of what we anticipate the evidence to show in this case. On June 3rd of 2024, Margot Wood and her daughter Julian Wood.
Oh, I think son. She might have misspoke there, because I believe Julian was a little boy. I could be wrong.
Went shopping at Giant Eagle on Lorraine Road. She left her child Johnny and Mila at home with the grandmother. They went shopping and went through the aisles to pick out what they were going to have for supper that evening. It was a common, ordinary day in the life of Margot Wood. The evidence is going to show, ladies and gentlemen, that on that day, Bionca Ellis also was having an ordinary day. And you will see through the video that we will show you, ladies and gentlemen, and there are going to be witnesses witnesses from Volunteers of America. You will hear from witnesses from Giant Eagle. You will hear.
So Volunteers of America is where the knife was stolen from, and Giant Eagle is the name of the grocery store.
Witnesses from the police department. For Bionca Ellis, you will see that she went to the police department on that day. She went to the North.
So I shared this and it was the first time that I had thought about it this way. I shared this on Courtroom Confidential as I was taking a look at the timeline of everything. Like Lizzie said here, my inkling is she may have done this to go back to prison. But I was wondering if it had to do with the property that she said that she thought the police had. Now, I do think she was in a psychotic state. Okay. But what makes it legal insanity is not understanding that what you're doing is wrong. And if you have an understanding that your act can cause you to go to prison, then you understand that that act is wrong. I also think it's interesting that she did not target some, you know, 250. She didn't target a man, somebody larger. She targeted a small boy and his mother, and so that's where this feels different for me. All right. We're going to hop back into this opening statement by the state.
Olmsted Police Department. She had a conversation with a police officer at the window. And that police officer will come in and testify to their conversation. Bionca Ellis did not like what she heard at the police department, so she leaves. And the evidence is going to show, ladies and gentlemen, that she went directly to Volunteers of America. You will hear the testimony from Diane Spihar, who is one of the managers of Volunteers of America. And on that particular day of June 3rd, 2024, she was working in the back, sifting through stuff to put out for sale. And Bionca Ellis comes back. Well, the evidence is going to show through video that prior to going back to the Volunteers for
and then I did just want to note that the defendant's demeanor, while the jury can't use that, to inquire about guilt or anything like that. But often people do look at how the defendant is reacting, what they're doing during these aspects. And so, uh, all right. Let's keep this going. We're not going to watch the entire thing. I will make sure to put a link to it down in the description.
action area. Bionca Ellis had spent several minutes sifting through a bin of knives.
That's what I thought.
And she chose 2 knives. You will see that, ladies and gentlemen. You will see her in Volunteers of America walking up and down the aisle. She had a conversation with Diane Spihar, looking for a bathroom. The evidence is going to show, ladies and gentlemen, that she left Volunteers of America and that she went to Things Outlet. And you will have the opportunity to look at that video. Bionca continued to go into the store. She looked around, and you will see the video of that. She didn't chat with anybody, but she...
And that's where, to me, that video, to me, just somebody watching it, just as a person, just watching it, it looks like she's looking... So that's where it's almost as though... So that's where I see Nashay's point of, is it really random if she goes after somebody she can physically overpower, and specifically targets somebody that she can physically overpower? That's a very good point. All right, let's keep it going. Make sure to breathe as you're listening. This is such a sad case.
The evidence is going to show, ladies and gentlemen, that as she leaves,
I also wanted to mention that Bianca is likely on some pretty strong antipsychotics. I heard, so I'm not sure if she's currently on Haldol. So Haldol is in the, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I've had clients, I don't think I've worked with people that have been on Haldol for brief periods of time. That is the old generation of antipsychotics. The newer generation doesn't have as many side effects. So they normally do Seroquel, risperidone, Abilify. Like there are other antipsychotics that they sometimes do. Haldol is one of the old what that's the older generation. Some of those can be administered via a shot. And so instead of somebody having to take medication every day, there are some of these that can be administered via a shot. And it is my understanding that Bianca is currently court ordered to take her medication. And it would be my concern if she was not ordered to take the medication. I do not know if she would. I don't know. All right, let's keep it going.
there is a cement pillar. And I want you to pay attention because she takes those two knives and she hits them against the cement pillar
Oh, wow.
to see their pliability. One knife that she has stolen drops to the ground, but she keeps the 12-inch butcher blade knife in her hand.
And so that's where, to me, it seems as though she is trying to pick a and something that will do more harm. And when you're pleading insanity, behavior like that does not seem like somebody that doesn't understand that what they are doing is wrong necessarily. And that's where the forensic psychologists, they look at the law, and you can almost always find somebody that will say, yes, I do think it is, and somebody that will say, no, it's not. And once again, it goes to the jury.
The evidence is going to show, and the video corroborates, that she walks in to Giant Eagle. And you will see through the videos, from the customer service angle, you will see inside the store where Margot Woods and Julian are shopping. You will notice, ladies and gentlemen, in the video, Bionca Ellis coming in to Giant Eagle, and she's got the 12-inch butcher knife. And she has it right by her side, and she's walking, and she's walking. And you will see in the video, ladies and gentlemen, that Margot had paid for her groceries. She had her hanging basket on her cart, the child in the seat of the cart, walking out, going to load her groceries and go home. I want you to pay attention to the video. As Mrs. Wood is walking out with Julian, and they're actually having a conversation, Miss Ellis passes them going this way, for lack of a better word to describe, she would be going west, and they are coming east.
Like crossing.
And so therefore, she sees them walking, and she turns immediately around,
and follows them.
and she follows them all the way out of the store. And you
Hi. So I want to go ahead and get to Lizzie's question, okay? Because Lizzie asks, how can this mother survive this trauma? And no matter what happens, so Bionca Ellis, she's either going to be found guilty and not insane, like guilty, so just guilty, or she will be found not guilty by reason of insanity and have to go to a mental health hospital. Those are the two options. I'm sure Julian's mother and Julian's family would like for her to be found guilty and go to prison, because then she can be sentenced to a period of time. But then I do hope that there would be because that's where a lawyer would talk more about what type of sentence she's facing if convicted, and all of those things. And so, but this is just so sad. There is a type of therapy, a type of treatment called EMDR. And what EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, what it does is sometimes after a stressful event, we sometimes believe something about ourselves. And what I mean by that is if I'm mugged on my way to the store, I might believe I should have known better, or I can't keep myself safe, or there might be this thought that automatically comes that I believe about myself. And what EMDR also tries to do is it tries to install a more positive thought. Because maybe as I look back to a certain instance, maybe what I would want to believe is I did the best I could, or um there are some people I can trust. I don't like you there might be something else that I would prefer to believe, and this is a type of treatment that can help somebody go through a process like this. Losing a child, there are no words. So there's a word for losing a husband, there's a word for if you lose your parents, orphan, lose your husband, widow, widower, or spouse, lose a partner. There's a word for that. We do not have a word for surviving the loss of a child. I am glad that she's still here for her other children because she was also attacked. So it wasn't Bianca isn't only facing the attack of Julian. The mother, Margot, was also she was physically injured as well. And I'm sure she's glad that she didn't have her other children with her, because there was a decision that morning, because she only just and that's where people can and that's where I hope that she has really good supports, and a trial like this can reopen everything. And I hope so. I always try to talk about these cases in a way that if a family member did see my coverage, I would hope that they would know that I was doing it in a way to educate the public. So that mother, if she felt she was being followed, she would have had every right to turn back into the store. To do you know it? But sometimes people, they don't want to, you know they don't want to look a certain way, because I've mentioned before, sometimes people might not have wanted to be called a Karen, because Bianca is walking around the store with this butcher knife, just walking around the store, just holding a butcher knife. And so people could have, but if they had called the police, I don't know if the police would have arrested her if she didn't say, there are voices telling me to harm somebody. The store would have to press charges for trespassing. Like there would have to be something that happened for the store to press charges. Um, Lynn in SC asks, but couldn't she eventually be released from a mental hospital once she's treated and found better? And so the now that where you're asking, is that a possibility? If somebody is found not guilty by reason of insanity, can they later be released? And then Lizzie says on trial TV, he was saying, "Sure." So it would be up to the treating professionals. And so that's why I'm not a forensic psychologist, because I would not want to be the one to decide, yes, this person can leave, and I don't know, like, I don't do forensic work, but there are people that love it. There are people that do this type of work. I believe if you followed, it was an older case, Slender Man. It was two teen girls that attacked somebody that they called a friend, and both of the girls ended up going to mental hospitals, and they have since both been released, but after being there for a significant period of time. So it's not like you go for a year and then you're released. It's normally 10 or more. It's normally maybe it's normally years that person was there. Before somebody like her would ever be released, especially with her history of coming off of her medication, she would have to acknowledge her diagnosis. Yeah, Morgan Geyser. And I covered it here on my channel. Um uh so she would have to acknowledge her diagnosis, acknowledge her need for medication, agree to be compliant with medication. There would be some pretty significant follow through. And she could potentially be court ordered to remain on medication. This is a case I honestly think there's enough for the jury to find her guilty. Okay, so I'll just go on ahead and mention that now. Now, the jury could hear the mental health expert that said that they thought she was insane. And yes, she has a diagnosis of schizophrenia and all those other things. So the jury could hear that and say not guilty by reason of insanity. But um, based on what I've seen in this case, I could see a jury convicting her. All right. Yes, often release is highly supervised, highly supervised. And all right. So let me go on ahead, and I want to play a little bit of the defense's opening. Okay. So we're going to play a little bit of the defense. Let me turn closed captions on, and we're going to speed him up to 1.25. Okay. We'll see how this goes.
Bionca Ellis is 34 years old. She has no felony convictions.
Wait a minute. I'm not sharing.
She has suffered.
Dr. Barry, oh, you have to share your screen. My bad, y'all. My bad. All right, here we go. So, here.
Bionca Ellis is 34 years old. She has no felony convictions. She has suffered from mental illness since the age of 22, diagnosed with schizophrenia. And Bionca has been treated on an outpatient.
So she was first diagnosed with schizophrenia at the age of 22, which is very common. Okay. So individuals that end up with a schizophrenia diagnosis, they can lead a relatively normal childhood. Sometimes around their teens, they start to exhibit some bizarre behavior. Before a person has their first psychotic episode, sometimes they exhibit what we call prodromal, or there are these just odd, eccentric. They start to have some behaviors that are just very odd. And so in the age of onset, for schizophrenia, generally it can be anywhere from 16 to 25, but most common is like 20 to like 22. That's a very common time for a person to have their first psychotic episode. A person can also be experiencing psychosis and not tell anyone. And what I mean by that is 22 is when she was diagnosed. I do not know when her first because she may have been experiencing the symptoms before getting the official diagnosis. Okay. And Kathy, thank you so much for the $10 coming in late. I had a blast on Courtroom Confidential. And I will let y'all know if I go back on. All right. I would love to talk with Josh again. I really had a great time. All right. All right, so let's go back into this defense opening.
Basis at a place called Murders Taylor for almost 10 years. There's been a lot of ups and downs as it relates to her treatment. You'll hear from her mother, Yolanda Eggleton, and she'll come in and she'll testify the struggles of trying to get Murders Taylor to medicate Bionca. Because Bionca, when she's on her medication versus when she's off her medication, she's two different people.
And that is where, if somebody has a supportive family, because in our country, we have some really great rights. And a hard thing with those rights is that people have the right to not take their medication. But if they are a risk to themselves or others, and sometimes a person can go from not a risk to themselves to a risk to themselves or others, sometimes that can happen rather quickly. And so depending on what behavior she exhibited, when she was in a state of psychosis. Sometimes the parent can try to apply for medical guardianship, or even just to be able to talk with their medical doctors, medical team, schedule medical appointments for them to be able to do those things. Because an individual with a diagnosis of schizophrenia, she would then also have to manage her medication and her appointments and do all of those things. Some people can with no problems. Some people need support with that. And if there's not the appropriate legal paperwork, the family can sometimes be left not being able to, like, without many options. Okay.
She pushed hard for Murders Taylor to try to do something about Bionca being on medication. And Murders Taylor's response was, she doesn't represent a danger to herself or others, so there's nothing that we could do. She'll tell you how she lost contact with Bionca over the course of 6 to 8 months prior to this incident. And I'll tell you that no one's going to dispute, the evidence will show that she's a mentally ill person. Between January of 2024 up until the date of this incident, June 3rd, 2024.
Lizzie asked a really great question. And remember, and you could be on a jury. And this isn't, I would love for you to ask a lawyer this too, because I would view this case different if this was her first psychotic episode and she wasn't aware that she had this diagnosis, and this kind of happened out of nowhere and it was more random, and it wasn't the incident, like it wasn't the situation at the police station earlier, that, like, if the details were a little different, I might view this in a different way. But often when somebody does have a diagnosis and they choose to not take their medication, we as a society often view that different versus somebody that's unaware that they have the diagnosis and they don't even know what medications could be helpful for them. There was a case out of Las Vegas. It was, y'all know I'm bad with names, but it was the guy that jumped and attacked the judge. He was not on his prescribed medication. He had actually been trying to get his medication, and his lawyer wasn't aware that, it's my understanding, his lawyer wasn't aware that he wasn't on his prescribed medication. And he had a history of being violent when he was not medicated, and he was still found guilty. His lawyer initially attempted a not guilty by reason of insanity, but I think the lawyer knew the case wasn't going well, and he ended up pleading guilty. And I think they came, Redden, yes, yeah, Deobra Redden, yes, that was the case out of Las Vegas. I did at least 2 videos covering it that way. I don't think the law has any. There's nothing that explicit that says if somebody chooses to not take their medication, they're responsible. We, to my knowledge, there are no laws at the federal or state level that has anything about that. And I know there might be some people that would fight against something like that because they want it to be the person's choice to take their medication. It does get difficult when we know this person would be more stable on their medication, but it really is their choice whether they take it or not. You will find a lot of diagnoses like schizophrenia and some other especially substance abuse and things like that in the unhoused population. Okay.
Bionca was off of her medication. The medication, the evidence will show, stabilizes her. Bionca received a Social Security check. And what she did with that check was she traveled from the state of Ohio to the state of California. She traveled from the state of California back to Ohio, and then down to Florida, and eventually back to Ohio. During that time frame, there were many occasions where Bionca exhibited mental illness. There were occasions where She would go to a particular location and try to get herself arrested because she's living in a homeless shelter, because she's living on the streets. She's trying to find structure. I think the evidence will show that during her mental illness, she tried to find places of refuge, unsuccessfully. On June 3rd of 2024, this unfortunate tragedy occurs. Just a few days before, Bionca was in the North Homestead Jail, charged with a theft-related offense, Walmart. She's released from jail, and then on the date of this incident, she comes back to the jail, to the police department, and she's in a wheelchair. And she
So he's bringing this up. So the day of this incident, she went to the jail, and I think that's when she went to the jail saying, "Y'all have my stuff," and wow. Okay, so he's bringing, but and often a lawyer is, even if there are some facts that might not be great for he's going to put his spin on those facts.
has a suitcase, and she wants to address her personal property issues. You have to keep in mind that the North Homestead Police Department had dealt with her. Bionca leaves her wheelchair and her suitcase at the police station, in the lobby, and she walks away. Ignored.
But that's where I wonder if she knew she was gonna be back. And so the jury is going to be able, often our brains want to tell a story. And so I wonder what the jury is going to do with that. Opening statements are not evidence, so they may not even remember that this was said. This trial has closing arguments, and it goes to the jury, I believe, on Tuesday. So I will be following this one.
The evidence will show that her first landing spot was this Volunteers of America store. And she is in there for a few minutes before she finds two knives. She walks around in an unauthorized area with knives in her hand, not concealed. And she's in there for a few minutes, and she walks out with both knives in hands. The evidence will show that there was no intervention, no one contacted the police. Then she walks into this.
So this is a great point. Why are there no mental health professionals working alongside with the police? And so there are some jurisdictions that have started to do that. So locally, city of Fredericksburg, I know they have mental health professionals that respond along with police, and the mental health professional has on like a bulletproof vest. They don't have a weapon, but they're with the officer. And I do think our police force would benefit from additional mental health training, especially when it comes to autism spectrum disorder, because sometimes somebody on the autism spectrum can be looked at as being defiant, but they're actually just confused and they might be very rigid. Unfortunately, we had an incident of that at a library. I want to say it was in Stafford, where a young man, he always went to the library, and he was just sitting outside waiting for the library to open. I think he was there a little. It was either the library had closed or it was very early, but he was just sitting outside the library, and a police officer came and asked him to leave, and he refused. And unfortunately, so trigger warnings, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, in that situation, it escalated, and the gentleman with autism, he is no longer here. And so now in the state of Virginia, if someone has a diagnosis of autism, they can have it on their ID. And what I mean by that is on their state ID. If somebody has a diagnosis of autism, and I recommend my clients that have this particular diagnosis, especially because I work with a few people that they can come across defiant and almost rude, but they're not like they're extreme rule followers, and their thing is, leave me alone. Like I'm not like like leave me alone. And we work on that, we address it, but I was very concerned that if an individual that has this particular diagnosis, if the officer mistook their not following directions for like being defiant or they're not being safe, that could cause issues. And so in the state of Virginia, you can add an autism diagnosis to the state ID. Hey buddy, get an iPad?
Um,
What's up?
I was in there. I was announcing.
Ooh, what were you announcing?
The new movie.
What's the new movie?
Pretend.
Oh, here's a pretend new movie. I have an 8-year-old. Anybody that's new here?
Called, Langston Battle for the protection of
We needed this break.
the universe.
Ooh, Langston's protection for the battle of the universe. Awesome.
Langston. For the protection of the battle of the universe.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right. So you can do something learning if you take the iPad. So you can do Scratch. Let me know if you need any help logging into Clever or anything. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you for letting me parent. You all are awesome. So okay. All right. I'm gonna play a little bit more of the defense's opening.
Next door, Things Outlet. And she walks up to the counter. Almost. She walks in the area where the front counter is. Both knives in hand. No one says anything. She's ignored again. She walks out of Things Outlet.
She's told
At some point, she hits one of the knives on the pillar, and she drops one of those knives. And just a couple minutes later, she lands into Giant Eagle. And it is true that whatever's going on in her mind, whatever's going on with her mental illness, the evidence will show that she got behind Ms. Wood and her child, Julian, and she followed her. Eventually, Bionca.
And so the defense's claim is going to be that there was, I don't know, the defense is going to try to say something else. So I just wanted to mention that Julian's mother, Margot, she did testify. I am not going to play her testimony. I actually haven't watched it. I would probably bawl my eye. So I've read her testimony. I have not watched it. I take my son to the grocery store on a regular basis. I went to the grocery store by myself this morning, but I normally take him with me, and I've always taken my son with me to the grocery store, and so my heart truly breaks for Julian's mom, because she did not do anything wrong. She didn't, and so yeah. Okay. So this is the episode where I was on Courtroom Confidential. I had a phenomenal time with them. Let's go ahead and get to the forensic psychiatrist. And so the way that Court TV, it's fine. the way that Court TV has this streaming, they have things interjected in between, so I'm going to skip past certain things. And so please take care of yourself as you're following cases like this. And so I knew for myself, I was not going to be able to watch her testimony until I know what happens with Bionca. I might go back. I don't know that I'll ever go back and watch it. I'll just be honest. I don't know. So let's go ahead and take a look at the forensic psychiatrist. So this doctor examined Dr. Testa. She took a look at Bionca's competency to stand trial. So I did mention, so my personal thoughts, I don't know this for sure. I am not Bionca's psychologist. In my opinion, having looked at everything, I would personally vote that she was sane at the time of the offense. So I would vote guilty. I do not think she was competent to stand trial. If you watch her initial court hearings, she is off. She is mumbling to herself. I believe she was actively psychotic. And so it's like, Dr. Berry, how could you think those two things? So competency to stand trial is, do you understand who you are? Do you understand who the judge is? Can you assist your lawyer? And Bianca would get to the point prior to being medicated where if she got upset, she would just stop talking. But it was in more of a psychosis way and not in a defiant way. And so that's where Dr. Tessa is going to explain a little bit. So let's go on ahead. Yeah, so there's so many ads, so I'll be able to skip through some of those things. So this is the only place I could find her testimony. My kiddo, he is my unofficial co-host, and so yeah. All right, so let's get into her testimony. All right,
Bionca Ellis for
it's going to be a little loud. Ooh, I'm gonna turn it down on my end.
competency.
Yes.
Okay. And you met with Miss Ellis where?
I'm going to turn closed captioning on. Because of the way their writing is, I apologize. I'm just doing what I can. Let's do it at normal speed. Let's do it at normal speed. I'll speed it up if my brain gets tired.
With Miss Ellis at North Coast Behavioral Health Care. I worked there from 2011 to 2012 full-time in competency restoration work. And then since I left that position, I've been a consultant there, and I visit there about once a week, and I do forensic consultation there. So my occasion to see Miss Ellis was a part of my work at North Coast Behavioral. I was assigned to evaluate her case when she was admitted for a 20-day competency evaluation. She was admitted in August of 2024, and that's when I first evaluated her.
Okay. And can you tell us about the evaluation, the process you would go through as it relates to evaluating her?
Yes. With a competency evaluation, what my job is to evaluate the person who's facing charges. I do a full mental health evaluation on them. That's a standard psychiatric interview and a diagnostic interview. Then there are two questions for me. Whether the person has a present mental condition is the first question. And the second question is whether that condition is impairing her, what's called her adjudicative capacities. So that has two arms. I need to decide if she can understand the nature and objectives of the proceedings that she's facing, and then if she's able to assist in her defense. So that is a standard competence to stand trial evaluation. You first decide if the person has a present mental condition, and then can they understand the proceedings, and if the third thing is if they can assist in their defense.
Okay. You reviewed her complete treatment and behavioral records from August of 2024 through January 2025?
That's correct. So the first time that I saw her, what I reviewed for the first, what's called a 20-day evaluation, what I reviewed at that time was the hospital records that were available at that time, which was from August 28th, August 26th through September 3rd. That was for the first evaluation. I also was assigned to do her follow-up competency reevaluation. That I did in January. And for that, I reviewed her full treatment record from August 26th all the way through to February 1st.
All right. Did you review prior competency evaluations by Dr. Sarah West and Dr. Hatter's treatment as well?
Yes, as a standard part of a competency evaluation, we will review any prior competency evaluations. So Ms. Ellis had been evaluated twice for competence prior to being referred to North Coast for what's called a 20-day inpatient competency evaluation. So when I was doing the 20-day evaluation, I reviewed both of those competency evaluations.
Okay. Before interviewing Ms. Ellis, you informed her that you were conducting a forensic evaluation and not providing treatment. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And do you explain to her whether or not this is done in confidentiality?
Yes. So Typically, when you see a psychiatrist, it's private. That's sort of the whole point. You want it to be private. You want to say whatever you need to say. With a forensic evaluation, you do not have privacy. So I did inform Ms. Ellis, I will not be your treating psychiatrist. You and I will not be a patient and a doctor. I'm assigned to evaluate an issue for the court. That's the extent of our relationship, and anything you tell me can be included in this report.
Okay. And did she have a response when you communicated that to her?
When I saw her in September, in August, for the September report, she did have a response. Her response, in part, was bizarre. She asked me about Jesus Christ and where he was crucified, and she made some other bizarre statements about Matthew and Jesus and taxes. I did repeat to her, explaining the purpose of my evaluation, and explained non-confidentiality, and asked her if she was willing to proceed with the interview, and she did shake her head yes, that she had understanding and agreed to proceed.
Okay. Doctor, based on your review, Ms. Ellis has a long history of severe mental illness dating back to at least 2014. Is that correct?
That's correct. There are records from a community mental health center. It's called Murtis Taylor. They specialize in treatment of severe and persistent mental illness. She has been a client with them since November of 2014. And typically, individuals with mental illness don't necessarily get treatment when they first develop symptoms. Sometimes it takes a minute. So I would say definitely she had that illness in November 2014, but probably before.
So she's been diagnosed with schizophrenia and
All right, let's be clear. Dr. Testa, she did the competency evaluation.
All right. So they had the interruption, and then let's get back into the testimony.
Diagnosed there, and then she had a referral to another hospital by Metro Health and was diagnosed there as well.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors what are the symptoms of schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder? What is that?
Yes. Schizophrenia is what we call a thought disorder. So with schizophrenia, the mind breaks from reality. The word schizophrenia means split mind. It's not to mean split personalities. It's that the mind itself is splitting.
Some people confuse a diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder or multiple personalities with schizophrenia because of that split mind, but it's more of the splitting of reality and hallucinations or psychosis. It's not two different personalities, like a dissociative identity disorder, which is viewed as an extreme form of dissociation, which is normally trauma related. Schizophrenia, and the reasons why medications often work is because it's about chemicals in the body and the brain. There is a genetic component. It can run in families. If I'm working with an adult that has a diagnosis of schizophrenia, normally there is an aunt or parent or somebody else in the family that also has that diagnosis.
From reality. So the symptoms that you'll have is your thoughts are not with reality anymore. People will believe things that aren't true. They have delusions, which is a fixed false belief. You cannot convince the person otherwise. That thinking is coming from the same part of the brain that produces real thought. So it feels like any of us would feel about something that we know is true. People will also have hallucinations with a diagnosis of schizophrenia. That means that their senses are firing when there's not something real there. Most common in schizophrenia, people will hear voices, comes in through your ears. It's coming from that same lobe of the brain where real hearing comes from, so it sounds very real. People will also see visions is pretty common in schizophrenia. Disorganization of thinking. Thoughts become really jumbled. So people will go from one thought to the next, and the associations between those thoughts we call them loose. It's like you can't really follow it.
She's being and so when she says loose, like it is. I have worked with people in an active state of psychosis, and they are very convinced. And sometimes it can be really confusing for them why you don't understand. Because sometimes when a person is in a state of active psychosis, they don't always realize just how disconnected their thinking is because they've had this break with with reality. And depending on just safety concerns and what all is going on, sometimes an inpatient evaluation is necessary. So I've worked with people when they've had their after their first, or like during treatment, they've had their first psychotic break. And if they're not sleeping, if there are issues, if they're doing certain things that are red flags, I'll often see, are there intensive outpatient options, or do we have to look at an inpatient option? Right. Let me see. Is borderline personality disorder similar to schizophrenia? Nope. So borderline personality disorder is that is where a person has severe emotional dysregulation, and it is viewed as a characterological issue. That's why it's diagnosed as a personality disorder, but it can be treated. So BPD can be treated. Um, Children of people with that diagnosis can often struggle with their own anxiety, depression, because it's very difficult growing up with a parent that, especially if they're not in recovery, if they're not in treatment for it. Sometimes with BPD, there can be threats to harm self. There can be all of these other things, and so definitely treatment is really important. But BPD is in the personality disorder section. Schizophrenia is the thing that kind of sets it apart is that psychosis. So within BPD, borderline personality disorder, there can be these false beliefs that are believed, but it's more like somebody's in love with me, or like it's more about their behavior. It's not about like it just feels different. Trust me. What's the difference between schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder? So, to be diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, the person has to display, there are different types. There's bipolar type, and then I think there might be depressed. I think the other type might be depression, but the biggest difference is that the person experiences mood episodes. So they often meet criteria for bipolar disorder. And I'm just giving bipolar type as the example. They meet criteria for bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, but then the two often they kind of come together. And so different. Um, um, and and so with schizoaffective disorder, those mood symptoms happen. And normally in schizophrenia, you normally don't see that, like, the person might be their mood might be flat and there might be some depression, but with schizoaffective disorder, it just feels different. Anytime somebody has bipolar disorder and psychosis, because there is bipolar disorder psychotic, like you can be, because there are psychotic episodes that can happen within a mood disorder. And so do they meet criteria for schizophrenia? So you're kind of trying to figure all those things out. Often schizoaffective disorder is diagnosed in psychiatric hospitals. Okay. So it's very complicated. I apologize that it's not. I wish there was like an easy way to to distinguish between the two. I'm trying to see if I can find, because I'm a very visual person. And so I want to see if I can find um like a picture that goes into it. Um do. Yes. And so with schizoaffective disorder, it's just that it's both schizophrenia and the mood, and they're having the psychotic symptoms even when they don't have the mood symptoms. Normally with bipolar disorder, psychotic, like if somebody is having psychotic episodes within a bipolar disorder, once their mood is stable, they normally don't have psychosis. But with schizoaffective disorder, you can have the mood be okay, but still be experiencing psychosis. It's very complicated. Um, all right. And so let me see. Oh, Amanda mentioned that she had been working with psychiatrists and therapists pretty consistently and did not show improvement. Now, it's my understanding that she's different on her medication and off her medication. And so to me, it did seem like I don't know if she would have done this if she was on her medication. I don't know. I don't know, because that would point more to an antisocial, to somebody that's breaking social norms, to more of like an antisocial behavior. All right. I do want to hear from the expert that did think that she met criteria. So this is Dr. West, Dr. Sarah West. Because it's not on YouTube, this is on 19 News. They have some clips from this. I was not able to find this anywhere else. Like I tried to find clips of this. And so let me go on ahead and make myself small and play this. Like I said, we
Noise used to overwhelm.
exactly. We might have to deal with some commercials. Let me mute. All right, because this is on their website. Let me unmute. Pause. All right.
All right, thank you. Sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's my bad. My bad, Amanda. I thought there was a question. Oh, so this wasn't about her. I
Good morning,
got
Dr.
it.
West.
Sorry about that.
Good morning.
Can you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what your title is?
And so she's a forensic psychologist.
Okay.
We're going to try to skip through
Are you
some
a
of her
member of any
history.
professional organizations?
We're going to skip through her professional organizations.
Mr. Mack, you have a question?
I want to get to the evaluation.
Yeah, so let's talk about,
It sounds low to me. Right up on my end. Let me see if I can boost it at all. I'll try to boost it as much as I can, and I'll try to not interrupt as much or to talk softer.
the sources of information. First of all, did you generate a competency report at some point in time?
I did, yes, after seeing her at this point.
All right, and I've already handed to you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit J.
Yes,
You have that in front of you?
I do. Thank you.
Okay. Tell us what goes into creating that report.
This is a competency to stand trial report. That's to say we look at two different things when we determine, offer an opinion as to whether someone is able to go to court and understand the nature and objectives of the proceedings against them, as well as assist their attorney in their defense in court.
And is there relevant background information that you look at with trying to identify that report and create that report?
Yes, of course, I'm very interested in mental health history. This is a present state evaluation. So when I look at competency, I'm looking at what the person presents to me at that time and whether or not at that time they are able to go to court and do those things I just mentioned.
All right. And you did this for Bionca Ellis, is that correct?
I did, yes.
And did you inform Bionca of what you were doing at the time as it relates to the report?
I did, yes.
Okay. And you have a section entitled Informed Consent, is that correct?
That's correct.
What is the purpose of putting that in the report?
The reason that I put that in the report is because I do share with the defendants that I'm evaluating that a competency evaluation is different than interacting with a clinical doctor. That's to say that any information that they give me can go in a report to the court. We do not have doctor-patient confidentiality, as some of you may be familiar with. Also to let them know that I am not in any way offering treatment. I'm not providing medications or any therapeutic interventions.
Okay. Did you obtain her educational history?
I did.
Okay. Anything notable as it relates to that?
In terms of the information that she gave me at the time of her competency evaluation, it was somewhat difficult to determine her full history, simply because she was so disorganized and not able to share information with me in a logical way. I believe I got different history from her when I saw her again in February of 25.
Okay.
Just a record, Exhibit J, can you just give us a date of that report or those writings to Mr. Mack?
I apologize, Judge.
That's okay,
So we're looking at your July 8th, 2024 report, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate that.
All right. And so once again, I'll make sure to put links to this down. Yep. The witness sounds good. The lawyer is definitely hard to hear. I don't think he's speaking directly into the mic. I see a part 2 where she is discussing some more. It looks like they have 5 parts that are available. Let's see where this one is. Oh, I muted it. Fun times.
Number of psychiatric medications, a number of which are antipsychotics as well as mood stabilizers. She's also been on antidepressants and medications for side effects related to her medications that she has to take for her psychosis.
Okay. Did Ms. Ellis ever report any history of suicide attempts or self-injurious behavior?
She did tell me that in 2023, she cut her arm pretty badly, and 911 was contacted because she wanted to be seen for the auditory hallucinations she was experiencing.
All right. And based on her murders, did you have a chance to review her Murders Taylor records?
I did, yes.
Okay. And do you know how frequent?
So just so y'all know, so this is the defense's expert. Okay, so this is the defense expert, Dr. West, who is a forensic psychologist, and she has, and so that's what she's doing. The state had a rebuttal witness that they called after Dr. West, and I do have his testimony keyed up as well. So we'll take a look at that.
Ms. Ellis was seen by case management from 2014 to 2023.
She was seen very regularly. This is likely because she had a lot of psychosocial needs, probably housing and getting benefits, including her Social Security, as well as other government entitlements. That's usually what case managers handle.
Okay. And there were Cleveland Clinic records also, is that correct?
Yes, related to a hospitalization at Lutheran Hospital in Cleveland.
And that was in 2015, is that correct?
Yes, that's
And
correct.
Can you tell us about what was involved as it related to that hospitalization?
She was admitted for psychosis and suicidal ideation. They described her history, and she said that the voices were raping her. She reported that the voices were telling her to kill herself, and she had developed a plan to jump off a bridge. So due to her safety issues, she was admitted.
Okay. And what details were in the Cleveland Clinic records about her admissions to Marymount and Fairview in September and October of 2023?
In September, she went to Marymount Hospital, that's September of 2023, for acute psychosis and an inability to care for herself. She spent 5 days there and reported to her care providers that she was having suicidal ideas and that she had run out of her medications. She was later admitted back-to-back at Marymount on October 22nd, actually the very day she was discharged, for a recurrence of psychosis.
Okay, and so the defense is going to go through all of that. Let me see, because I wanted to get to where they talk about her mental state on the day of the incident. Let's see if she gets to that here. I do have an overview, but with an overview that doesn't always, sometimes they leave stuff out. And so that's why I want to see what was actually said during her testimony.
Seeing her alone.
Okay, and
Ah.
you,
Okay, so so good. So this is the state's state asking her questions back. Let me pull up the overview of her testimony. And so Dr. West did mention that she did assess for malingering. So malingering is when somebody is faking a mental illness. And so Bionca Ellis definitely has schizophrenia, maybe even schizoaffective disorder. Um, uh, and let me see. With schizoaffective disorder, you have to stabilize mood and psychosis because a person can have manic states, especially if it's the bipolar type. Um, all right. And so let me get back to my notes. And she was able to rule out any malingering because of the history, the medical history. She has an extensive medical history. Um, and then Dr. West summarized her opinion that with a reasonable medical clarity that Miss Ellis suffers from a severe mental disease, namely schizophrenia, and was experiencing symptoms at the time related to this illness that caused her to not know what she was doing was wrong. So that is what Dr. West testified to. And we are going to listen to the rebuttal expert, Dr. Stefan Knopfsinger. And so, but let's just hear a little bit more of the state rebuttal because the state is going to have some very specific questions.
Were at the facility, correct?
Yes.
I said rebuttal, I meant cross-examination. So the state is going to cross-examine this witness.
Right, and there are corrections officers there?
That's correct, but they do not typically stand in the room with me at the time of the evaluation for purposes of privacy.
Okay, all right. But they were there for the competency then?
Outside the room, yes.
The corrections officer, but the attorney was inside the room?
Mr. Johnson was inside the room with us, yes.
Okay.
And it is sometimes the defense lawyer is there for evaluations. That does happen. I can't speed it up.
So you come up with the diagnostic impression of schizophrenia,
Yes.
okay? And again, schizophrenia is what?
A psychotic disorder.
All right, and it's treated with medication.
Correct.
And it's fair to say that there are a lot of folks that have schizophrenia and function very well throughout their lives on
Yeah.
medication.
Yes.
Now, in your diagnosis, it says during the evaluation, her thoughts were disorganized and she appeared internally stimulated, as evidenced by her looking to the side and smiling to herself on occasion.
And so there's something called responding to internal stimuli. And I won't say how, but like if you've seen it, you know it. And there were times during Bionca Ellis's arraignment that watching it, it looked as though she was responding to internal stimuli, that there was something. So there's some people that smile at the camera because they're looking at the camera. There are some people that are like there's a voice that said something funny in their head, or like they're seeing something that nobody else can see. It just feels different. It just does. All right.
So is that an objective observation, doctor, or is that subjective?
Technically subjective, I think.
It was an internal stimuli.
I would suggest that the objective portion of that was what I witnessed her doing subjectively. Through my experience, I believed that was related to internal stimulation.
But again, that was a subjective opinion, correct?
Technically is.
Yes, but based on my experience.
So then you determine her not to be incompetent, and then she is sent to North Coast. Fair?
I opined that she was not able to understand the nature and objectives of the proceedings against her and that she was unable to assist in her defense. Ultimately, it was the judge who adjudicated her incompetent, or rather sent her for a 20-day evaluation.
Okay.
So I offered an opinion and the judge based a decision on that.
Yes. I agree with that.
So now
I do
let's
think
talk about,
I do think during that initial, I don't think she's presenting very different than how she did but prior to being medicated.
not guilty by reason of insanity, ma'am, right? You've testified, you've said in 5 trials, you've participated in 5 different cases, right?
Yes.
All right, and so I want you to tell this jury your methodology from the beginning.
Okay. And so the state is, I think, trying to get to her credibility. So the state is going to say that she's only testified 5 times. She's only done this. And I don't know if that's 5 times total or if that's just 5 times under her own license. I'm not exactly sure. And also the insanity defense isn't something that happens often. And so for a person to only have 5 doesn't necessarily have to be a low number. A state forensic psychologist, because maybe there's one person for the state that assesses everybody that comes in with that particular diagnosis or that particular issue. Because I believe she's a private psychologist that does this forensic work. That's what I believe is happening here. But we're gonna keep it going. So like I said, the 5 number doesn't necessarily mean that somebody isn't qualified. But I think the prosecution is bringing that up because their expert likely has more experience. But if they work for the state, they are going to have more opportunities to do these types of evaluations versus a private provider.
Beginning to end, what you consider when you are making your determination.
So as we discussed, collateral information is important, historical data, previous mental health records are important. My interview with the individual, the evaluee, is important as well. And if I am conducting an insanity evaluation, I would do so at a time when the individual was relatively symptom-free and able to engage in logical conversation. I would also be interested in other legal history as well.
Okay, and that is all corroborative of determining the wrongfulness of one's actions.
I would use all that information to offer an opinion.
Correct. So all that opinion, all those items are necessary for you to create your opinion, correct?
Yes, they're all pieces of evidence that I would use.
All right, so self-reporting in and of itself is not enough. Would you agree with me?
Yes.
All right, and self-reporting, you would agree with me, should be recorded.
No, not necessarily.
Did you record your interactions in your
So I believe the state's expert did record his evaluation, and I really enjoyed watching the Letitia Stout's assessment with Dr. Lewis. Seeing those videos, you got a better understanding of everything. And so her evaluation was not recorded, which they don't have to be recorded, but if it is, it just gives the jury more information. Because I saw a clip from the state's experts, and I could understand why he was saying what he said with seeing the video as well.
evaluation for NGRI with Ms. Ellis?
In the form of note-taking, but not audio-visual recording.
You did not record her.
That's correct.
Okay. Do you think that that's important to observe her answering your questions and using her own words? So that could be related in your report?
I do quote her in my report, and those are based on my notes that I took during the interview.
My question is, do you think that that is important to record an individual and use it in making your determination?
No, I don't think it's necessary to record it
Okay, why not?
because I take notes.
Okay, because you take notes, but don't you think it's a fair representation of how the person reacts to your questions when you're asking the question, their gestures, their body language, their ability to understand, their ability not to understand? Don't you think that that is important?
I do, and I'm generally able to observe that during the course of the evaluation.
So you think that just your own subjective note-taking or objective note-taking is enough to demonstrate that?
I do, yes.
Okay, thank you. So in your report, you've indicated all the sources of information. And can you just list those for me, ma'am?
Y'all ask such great questions, and because I can't speed this up, like I'm listening, but I'm probably going to switch over to the defense to the state's expert. So on the defense's side, if there's a public defender who pays for the psych evals, if there is an expert to hire, so that is where they submit to, like, the court has a fund. So if you remember the Sarah Boone trial, Sarah Boone attempted to get like some things paid for, but I think because it's not the judge that approves or denies. I think it's that, and I know that's how it works in Florida. So every state might do it a little bit different, but there are funds available to pay experts if somebody has a public defender, but that expert has to agree to the state's rate. So sometimes the state will say, we are going to pay, like, this individual has quoted us at 25,000. The state might say we'll pay 10,000. Sometimes the state might pay the expert's full fee, but normally there are different rates. Okay. I hope that's helpful. I want to skip over to, and I think I might have lost it. It was the rebuttal doctor. I think I lost, but I think I put it over here. The I might have to pull up my other notes. I was doing too much stuff behind the scenes. Sometimes that happens. So I want to go to the state expert. Let me go to my history. Full history. Let's see. Because it was a court TV. Let me see. Let me just go to court TV. Because they have the expert from the state. So the state had an expert get up and testify. Oh, do you know what? It was at the top of this. It wasn't court TV. It was this news 19. Okay. So let me share this tab. I already had it. All right. So this is the doctor that the state brought in to rebut the defense's expert.
In the lobby, because the police officer that handles those complaints was not there that day, and they told her, we don't know anything about your missing items. So she was unsuccessful in her effort to retrieve her missing items from the police station. We then have directly after that, it's all on video, she goes through the parking lot, gets out of her wheelchair, gets rid of her luggage, and goes over to Volunteers of America, where she's seen walking through the store, selecting the 2 knives from the Volunteers of America, We have her then, only a few minutes later, entering the Giant Eagle store with one knife in hand, and then locating the victims in the Giant Eagle outside by the cash registers there, doing a 180 and turning and walking behind them, following them out, and then committing the offenses at 1,500 hours. So the close relationship in time to the defendant's unsuccessful efforts to retrieve her missing $700 worth of items, the close relationship with that, with getting the knives and then committing the offenses, coupled with her acknowledged rage and anger, to me indicates a causal relationship between her rage and anger and the offenses.
Thank you, StreamYard, for letting me know I was muted. The stream was soon. That girl about to start yelling the lane real quick because I forgot that I muted myself. He is saying that her rage and anger is what was under this attack and not mental illness. Wow. We'll see. We'll see what the jury thinks.
In fact, she's still angry about it the next morning when she's interviewed by Detective Jones. She continued to focus on her perception that she had been victimized, that she was missing 700 items, and demanding an investigation.
I forgot to mention that the defense expert said that Bionca thought she had to choose, that somebody had to die that day, and it was either going to be her or somebody else, and that there was a voice telling her that somebody had to die. That is what the defense expert, that's my understanding of the defense expert's testimony. I believe the state's expert sees all that very different.
And appearing to me to be angry.
Appearing to you to be angry, sir, that's subjective, correct?
Yes.
It's an observation, but it's, I guess it's open to interpretation, sure.
And was she disorganized in that interview with Detective Jones?
I don't believe so.
And what would you be looking at if she was disorganized in her thought process?
Kind of a word salad, just sentences not making sense, maybe some disorganization in her behavior as well.
But she's focused in that interview.
She's focused on getting back what she believes is her missing items, and then when she's asked about the offense, she simply asks for a lawyer, which appears to be organized.
Okay? And she, in fact, kind of distanced herself every time Giant Eagle is brought up.
Right, and every time there's an attempt to discuss the events at Giant Eagle, she kind of doesn't want to talk about it.
So that is not a form of disorganization for somebody who's suffering from schizophrenia.
It seems to be pretty intentional to me, so that would be organized action.
And sir, you've been doing this for 30 years, so your observations of people with schizophrenia, whether they're organized or disorganized, you've observed both.
Yes.
All right? And then E under 1.
Well, again, we've talked about, yes, so rage and anger are not symptoms of schizophrenia. So we have a motive that's unrelated to her severe mental.
Oh, wow. Huh. Huh. Every expert gets to examine things. I know that's that's I'm not laughing because it's funny, okay? I haven't had an expert say something saying rage and anger is not related to her diagnosis. Now, if she was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, specifically bipolar type, there can be a rage that goes with that can be within that particular diagnosis. So he's seeing her getting upset as being completely separate. But to me, I saw her getting upset. She seemed confused, thinking that they still had her stuff. So, huh. Okay. I know. And that's so an issue of race can come into this. And I do wonder what the jury is going to do. And so we talked about Ruth Miller's case. So Ruth Miller is an Amish mother, and the way the police interacted with her, so she was touching the officers. She actually gets down and prays with one of the officers. She's allowed to talk directly one-on-one with the children that she just tried to drive in a golf cart into the lake. Like, she was allowed to do things that I think if she had looked a little I'm not sure what would have happened in a different situation, okay? And so that's where here we talk about all things, and sometimes individuals, how people see race, culture, sometimes those things can come in. And that could happen with the jury as well. We will see. Um uh Looking at this, my concern is that I do think, yes, she does have a mental illness. I'm not sure that at the time she didn't understand that what she did was wrong. That's the part that I'm focusing on. The the state is taking a bit of a different view. So, interesting. All right, let's keep it going.
Disease. Therefore, she would not meet the second arm, that the mental disease caused her to not know the wrongfulness. Instead, it's the exact opposite.
Okay. Item number 2.
The contemporaneous evidence for the offenses, which includes the police video, the witness statements, the police reports, indicate that she did not experience symptoms of her severe mental disease close in time and during the offenses to such an extent that she did not know the wrongfulness of her actions. So we have her, again, in the North Olmsted Police Department lobby and parking lot, interacting calmly with the staff through the window, not displaying any objective signs of mental illness. She's not talking to herself. She's not, gesturing. She's not saying, at least later on, not saying anything strange. Likewise, the Volunteers of America video show her on the sales floor acting in an organized fashion, not displaying any objective signs of mental illness. We see her selecting, taking, and then stealing the 2 knives. Did not appear to be distressed or hallucinating or internally stimulated or out of control.
So I don't know that I could say that, because she could have been experiencing a voice telling her to do it. I don't know. But so this is, and the jury is going to get to hear both of these. This goes a little bit further than I would personally take it. I did not meet her. I did not review every piece of evidence. Um I don't know that you can look at a video and definitively say whether somebody is hallucinating or not. I've had people in my office that I was concerned because they were just little things. Because I have a relationship with them, I knew, wait a minute, I don't think you're here with me, right? Like, I think what's going on. Um, uh, and so, okay, I don't know. This is, we'll keep it going.
Made no statements, so that video, she is not displaying objective signs of her severe mental illness. Consider this same thing about Things Outlet. She goes next door. She does not appear to be distressed, hallucinating, or acting out of control. Likewise with Giant Eagle videos, shows that she was well organized and intentional in her actions. Did not appear to be hallucinating or responding to internal stimuli, was not disinhibited. She didn't make any statements, so certainly no psychotic statements were made. So no objective signs of her mental illness.
All right. And that's in Things Outlet.
Well, that's Giant Eagle, but it's in all 3 stores.
All right, but let's talk about Things Outlet for just a minute. She walks out of Things Outlet, and there's been talk about these knives,
Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit.
okay?
After the offenses.
I want to see the point. I want to see if this video has some of the because they have clips from his interview. Okay, yeah. I wanna watch some of the clips of his interview.
Yes?
All right, and so we're gonna play at 2:23:45, and we're gonna play to 2:57:30.
You're going to play it continuously?
Yes,
2:23 to 2:57,
yes, that was the agreement that was reached.
24 minutes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So, Doctor, when you're at this particular point, what point in the interview are you at here?
Right, so we've been talking for 2 hours and 24 minutes. So the first hour and a half, we had gone through the informed consent and all the background histories. And right about 1 hour 50, we started talking about the offense, and that was the rest of the interview. So we had a total about 1 hour and 10. So at this point, we're about half an hour to 40 minutes into it. And so we've already gone over the much of the offense already. And I'm going back and asking some clarifying questions. And she's, up to this, she's told me, that she blanked out, that something took over control of her body. And so later on, we kind of talk about that in some more detail, but.
So again, you're going to play continuously, no discussions, right? We're not
Correct,
gonna
that
interrupt.
was the agreement by the parties.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, go ahead, thanks.
So what happened, by accident, So I'm just trying to understand.
You want to pause it for a moment?
I can't
Ms.
hear
Kutero,
that.
yeah, Turn mine up, and let's see if it
Yeah.
can go any louder.
I can't hear that at all.
Right there. So I put it up. Were some of you having problems hearing it? So this is the maximum, so let's go from here.
So what happened, by accident, So I'm just trying to understand. Did you know there was laws against stabbing people at that point? And everyone knows that. No kids know that. So you knew it was illegal.
Okay.
Did you have any thoughts that they were going to attack you? Or did you, again, my question is, did you have any thoughts that they were going to kill you? This voice is telling you to kill yourself. Help me to understand, though, how you having voices telling you to kill yourself, and visions of you dying, how that results in you stabbing the lady with her son. I don't understand the blackout thing.
I lost control.
Okay.
Never been in a situation.
And so, for this expert, I'm actually glad that the jury will get to go back and watch and listen to this. So, and Lisa mentions how her demeanor is completely different from from her first court appearance. So, I do believe she's medicated. I tried to go back to find the exact date he met with her. I can't find it. I do believe that she was competent, because any evaluation before she was competent might not be valid. And so I do believe he met with her after. Um, so Lizzie, I don't know if she and the thing with schizophrenia and the medication for schizophrenia is it can blunt affect. It can make it to where it's difficult to show emotions. It can make it to where you're just kind of like flat and blah. Somebody that used to be really like upbeat and chipper, like they might all of a sudden just kind of stare off and be a little bit more withdrawn. And so sometimes it can be the medication. I do not remember exactly what medication she's on, and she could be on what's called Haldol, which is a very like that is a that's a strong antipsychotic. And then also uh, some people are prescribed anxiety medication because they are anxious about court. And some of the anxiety medication can also make a person seem more withdrawn as well. So I can't say anything about whether she does or does not feel guilty. Um, um, and I would wonder if medication played a role in how she's presenting. Okay. All right. Let's keep this going.
Go to somebody's life or death situation. Like, I don't know how this could have possibly happened if I was 20, but I had my life planned out. Just something like this just happened.
Well, let me kind of push back on that because this kind of stuff doesn't just happen. There's some kind of reason for it, even if the reason now sounds like it was hard to understand or crazy or whatever. And there must have been some logic in your thinking.
I don't even know if these people, I never saw them, ever.
Right.
But when you hear the voices now, the visions, not even understanding this so hard.
And you said before about having this vision of you killing someone, a lady in black. Tell me about that.
It's like sitting there and I can't see nothing in front of me. It's like moons and planets and me killing somebody and then Satan killing me.
Very true.
Which is visions that I don't really have.
Visions of the moon and planets, and it's all black.
Yeah,
And you killing somebody?
yeah,
What about Satan?
he kills me.
And so the reasons why I cover these things and I talk about these things is because if someone is having visions of themselves committing crimes and they are not medicated, they do not have active immediate family support, they can go to a local emergency room. There was one point I heard that she escaped from, like, they were going to admit her to a mental health hospital, but she ended up leaving against medical advice. Um, because I think I don't know. Like I remember that was part of the history that was given, was that at a prior incident years ago, or at least a year ago or so, she was at the hospital, and they were going to admit her, and she ended up leaving against medical, like she just left. And then she came back to that same hospital for treatment later, and they didn't check in. Yeah, she ended up sneaking out. And she came back to that same hospital later, like a few months or years later, and they did not ask about her medication. I think the defense brought that up. Um, yeah. Um, she was seen at various emergency rooms because her presentation is is odd. So she was going around in a wheelchair. Um, and she could physically walk, but she would sometimes be in that wheelchair. She was wheeling herself around with that piece of luggage, and somebody did call the police, and there is body cam of the police officer stopping and talking with her. I take the metro here in the Washington, D.C. area, and not on a regular basis. I take it a few times a year, and I recently witnessed somebody having what I believe was likely a mental health incident. And people just kind of stand there and watch. And the individual wasn't harming themselves, they weren't harming anybody else. They were just kind of screaming and yelling and keeping the train from moving. And so I do think security or the police did end up coming. um, there are other countries that do a better job supporting individuals with schizophrenia. In our society, some individuals end up kind of pushed to the outskirts, versus being embraced in community versus having support. Someone mentioned earlier, where was her family? And I've worked with people that have a family member with a significant mental health diagnosis who is an adult. So she was diagnosed at 22 years old, and this incident happened. I think she was 34. She was either 33 or 34, because she's 34 now. So she was either 32 or 33 years old when the incident occurred. And it's just sometimes family, you do what you can, but it sounds like she stopped talking with family. Because if she was my family member, I'd probably be checking in on, like, "Hey, are you taking your meds? Hey, how are things going with your therapist?" And some people can get upset by that, especially if they don't think there's anything wrong with them. There are some people that have a serious mental health diagnosis, and they might struggle with that diagnosis. They may not think they need medication. I'm just fine without it. And maybe they're not. And so, yeah. All right, let's keep it going.
Now, a few months earlier in Cleveland, you had told the police about you had killed someone out in California.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
That's the lady in black that I saw that I killed in a vision. And I thought that it was real.
And that could be a delusion. She might think that she harmed somebody in the past, but California will definitely, like, if there is any evidence that she did a crime in California, California definitely will look into it. But it could have just been, she thought, because with schizophrenia and psychosis, the individual experiencing it, they cannot tell what's reality and what's in their mind and what's their break from reality and what is psychosis. And so her seeing a vision of doing a crime and her actually doing one, it can almost feel the same. Yeah.
You had a vision that you had killed the lady in black.
The lady dressed in black.
Thought it was real.
Yeah.
So you called the police to report that?
Yeah.
And this is hard because she knows she has to cooperate with this assessment and this evaluation, and he's not there to be her therapist. She knows he's there for the state, and now if his opinion was like, okay, you know, I think she does meet criteria for insanity, the state would change their strategy and all of those things. We saw that in it was the one that was the cult. Oh, was it like I think the case happened in Georgia. Chloe Driver. We saw that with the Chloe Driver, where all the mental health experts were saying, "We do think her mental health contributed to what happened, but her behaviors and everything after, I think, had the jury and the state because she was found guilty of those of that crime. And even the mental health experts were saying, oh, like this could be consistent with her mental health diagnosis. Okay, that's all I can take of that one. I updated the links. So this one is the channel 19. I can't get back to it. I promise you it was channel 19. It was that link. Everything is down in the chat. In the description. Please let me know if y'all have any last minute questions. Whew, this was a toughie, okay? And I do not know what the jury is going to decide. Please prepare yourself on Tuesday. Tuesday, there will be closing arguments. I could see the jury possibly saying guilty. I could see the jury possibly saying not guilty by reason of insanity. I could see the jury struggling for a few days to get everybody on the same page. Um, my heart breaks for the Woods family. Okay. So the victim in this case is Julian Woods, his mother, who was also attacked, Margot Woods, and she testified in this case. I'm feeling teary just even thinking about the experience of this family. I've supported family members, clients through difficult situations like this, where we've talked about, are you in a space to go to the verdict? Because if they go to the verdict and it's not, like, can they handle it? Um, I saw a recent hung jury, and there was just a mother that was just so distraught, understandably, was just, oh, because they're gonna have to go through the whole trial again. If the state does decide, and I think the state will decide to bring charges again in that case. Um, but sometimes the jury can't get on the same page. And so this is a complex case. Schizophrenia is a complex diagnosis. There's a lot of things that come into this. I think we can all agree, yes, Bionca Ellis does have a diagnosis of schizophrenia. Possibly, I heard schizoaffective thrown out there a few times, but I think everybody agreed, at least schizophrenia. Yes, she does have that diagnosis. I do believe she does much better when she is on her medication. And I just want justice for Julian. That's what I would personally like. And there is no justice that will ever be enough for his mother. I love the judge that said true justice would mean that, like, our systems worked the way that they were supposed to, and the victim was still here. And we are never going to get that. I talk about these cases because there might be somebody that has a diagnosis of schizophrenia or has a family member or knows somebody. And I don't want people to be scared of the diagnosis because it's a very small percentage of people. Um, um, and so that's where I don't, I can't even say. And if I was Julian's mom, I would probably create some type of advocacy. I would have to turn this pain into some type of purpose. I would have to do something in my child's memory. And once I was ready to do that, because first you just cope with the pain. Um, every birthday, every holiday, it's a lot. It really, really is a lot. And so, either way, it's very sad. And so that's where I do encourage, if there something that I mentioned on Courtroom Confidential, and I've said here on my channel too, because some people will view schizophrenia almost like it's a demonic possession. And it's like, no, if a person takes medication and they're better on their medication, this is not a spiritual issue. not at all a spiritual issue. This is a person with a health condition, and they need their medication to be stable. Like that's exactly what this is. And so yesterday was World Mental Health Day. Mental health is health, and it is important that people take care of their mind, their body, that you just take care of yourself, okay? A friend of mine is a psychologist, and she is also watching Love is Blind. And so I'm probably going to take a small break, but like I am going to cover whatever the verdict is. So Tuesday night, if there is a verdict on Tuesday, we will talk about that case. If there's not a verdict, I might talk about that case of that the 17-year-old kid, I think it was in New Jersey, that horrific case that involved a Jeep and two girls on motor scooters or something. I may talk about that case on Tuesday. But I will have another Love is Blind episode coming out where I talk about it with my friend. I watched these last so it just keeps getting worse. Okay. So if you want to avoid and just wait, like you don't have to watch it. If you do want to watch it, if you need some drama in your life that isn't coming from the world, it has plenty of drama, but I don't think any of those, my own personal thoughts, I don't know any of those people. The way that the show has been put together, I don't think any of them should say yes at the altar. I hope everybody says no. It's just bad. It just kept getting worse. And I want to talk with y'all about it. And so Share Bear mentioned having a close friend that was hospitalized with schizophrenia. Yeah. Um, and there are sometimes people can be stabilized on medication. It just kind of depends on what happened. There are some people where they kind of thrive in the institution setting, and they would struggle out in a less structured environment. There are sometimes community resources where where there will be group homes, or there's some kind of semi-structured housing that can help support people. But yeah. It just keeps getting worse. It doesn't always with reality TV. I agree, Christina. I agree. Is anyone watching the Ed Gein series? I haven't caught that one yet. Um, I appreciate you all. I will see y'all on Tuesday. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you have a long weekend, enjoy Monday off. I will be working on Monday, and so but my kiddo's off from school, so he'll get a special day with dad. And but I appreciate you all, and I will see y'all next time. Have a good one. Bye.